This is a TRS media production. I'm your host, Michael T. This is my co-host, Matthew Jones.
Hi, how's it going, everybody? So this is going to be a podcast from the two of us, video and audio. What the hell was that? What are you doing here?
I was just on the highway. Oh my god, all those people!
I was just taking a dump. Where are we?
What time is it?
What day is it?
What year is it?
It's not 2020, is it?
I fucking hope not.
No, it's 2021. You know what that was, don't you? That was time travel.
Which means it's time for another episode of What's the Point? The show where we discuss varying forms of media and ask the question, what's the point? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel. And Matthew, what's the discussion point for today?
We're going to talk about time travel, part 2, and we're going to start with Doctor Who.
Wait, did he bring us here? Or she, sorry?
Was the TARDIS my living room? Oh, no,
Are we in the TARDIS right now?
Hang on, sorry, not my living room. Our professional studio.
This isn't even a living room, it's a dining room. So you got that one wrong.
I've never dined in here.
I know. So what makes it a dining room? This is actually a dining room table, though, is it not?
No, this is a purpose-built studio table.
This is the center of the TARDIS. What does he call this console?
He calls it the TARDIS.
Oh.
Do you know what it stands for?
Time and relative dimensions in space.
In space.
Why did you complete my sentence? You asked me a question. Let me fucking answer it.
So anyway, do you like Doctor Who? It is purely...
Overall, generally, yes, I love Doctor Who. But the thing is, Doctor Who isn't inherently... Well, no, sorry. It is inherently a time travel story, but it's not always about time travel.
Well,
time travel is just what is just the setting, essentially. Gives Doctor Who the opportunity to be able to enter into all of these scenarios that span, as the TARDIS says, relative dimensions in space.
And the time... Generally, it's used to just get them to a different location to tell a story, which time travel is mainly used for in movies and TV.
So it's like Quantum Leap.
Except Sam never found his way home.
Well...
Oh, sorry, spoilers.
in my headcanon, he did. In my headcanon, he actually ended up in the year 2257.
On the bridge of the Enterprise.
In command of the NX-01 Enterprise.
So, Doctor Who has gone through, obviously, a million different 13 different iterations, I think it is now.
The latest Doctor, what's her name?
Jodie Whittaker.
Jodie Whittaker.
And
Whittaker.
And obviously, it's I think it is technically the longest running TV series ever. In sense of spans.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of downtime between.
No, but that's what I mean. The spanning of time. The spanning of time from the first episode till now. Yeah.
Although technically there was one guy in between. Barker and Eccleston, wasn't there? There was that one movie.
There was lots.
I thought Barker was the last one of that era.
You then had Peter Baker.
That's what I'm talking about.
You had Colin Baker. You had Sylvester McCoy.
Which one's the one that we always say looked like our late grandfather?
Tom Baker.
Baker.
Yeah.
Oh, so, yeah. So okay, yeah, because Sylvester McCoy was the last one before that made-for-TV
with Paul
movie,
McCann,
which has the Master as the villain in it, where he's
Julia Roberts' brother.
Yeah, he's some form of black ooze. Which actually was not a bad film. I've watched that since. I found it on Dailymotion.
It's a TV movie, which there's nothing wrong.
It's a
with
one-time event, which Doctor Who did actually do quite a few of those. Because if you remember, Rowan Atkinson was the Doctor at one point. Yeah, in a special, in a one-time special.
There was what's it called? There was standalone movies as well, like proper movies about the Daleks. I'm just going to grab them for you now. So Tom Baker is the one that looked like our mum's dad. So much so.
And Sylvester McCoy was not after him. It was
no. Then it was Peter Davison, then Colin Baker, then Sylvester McCoy. Then they had the gap. Then they had the movie with Paul McCann, and then they had a gap, and then they had the new
over 2007.
But all the doctors, because John Hurt was the Doctor in a movie. He was the wartime Doctor. Mm-hmm. But the time travel there is used awesomely because they have...
Is Rowan Atkinson included in that picture?
No.
Because he was the Doctor for a special.
Well, they don't even include.
Probably don't really include him because it was a special. It was a comedy special.
And they don't include John Hurt either because he was only like a bit part character in a story arc. He wasn't. Whereas Paul McCann was actually the Doctor for a whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
But time travel in
Sylvester McCoy was at the beginning of that.
Yes, he dies and regenerates into Paul McCann. The TARDIS is the ultimate time travel MacGuffin. So they never actually use the TARDIS or time travel to affect the plot. It's not like they go back specifically to change something that was done wrong. They just move around space and time.
So one thing I do want to point out as far as MacGuffins are concerned, it isn't exactly a MacGuffin because it's not unimportant or ambiguous to the people watching it.
It's true.
The TARDIS itself, I guess you could say in the very first series, is and in individual series it can be considered a MacGuffin, but it's also a spaceship. Don't forget too.
Yeah, it's integral to the story.
Yeah,
but the use of time travel is great because not only, as I say, is it a time travel machine, it's a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically allows the writers of Doctor Who endless opportunities to go to places in time, in space, and doesn't restrict the storytelling at all. Because some of the best, obviously, the series with Sean Pertwee. No, not Sean Pertwee.
His dad.
John Pertwee. Is set purely on Earth because he's lost the TARDIS. And as a kid, I didn't really notice it because I was watching them on reruns, and you're a kid, you don't notice shit like that. But then when you rewatch it as an adult, it's very jarring to have Doctor Who and the TARDIS. The TARDIS is as integral to Doctor Who as the Doctor. To then just remove that piece out of it, it was very obvious. So they obviously...
Do you know what I didn't like about the newer series, though? Just to move on from that a little bit, but you kind of gave me a thought. Why is the TARDIS still looking like a emergency police phone booth?
Because it's broke. It's stuck. It's stuck in... That's its camouflage.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. How come he's not fixed that?
So the reason
I know why in the new series it's like that because it's fan service, but realistically, they should have built upon. They should have changed now. It should look like a modern day. It should look like a fucking iPhone.
It shouldn't look like a phone box at all because there ain't even them. The reason it hasn't changed is because the TARDIS is as iconic to Doctor Who as the Daleks and the Cybermen. It is a character now. It's no longer a tiny MacGuffin. It is a character. The blue telephone box is as important to Doctor Who lore as the Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's a perfect example of what you say now. It should have changed. His sonic screwdriver has changed with every Doctor. The style's changed. So you'd think he'd fix it. But
has it ever actually been a screwdriver?
No, it's a sonic screwdriver.
But the thing is, a screwdriver is called a screwdriver because you screw and drive with it.
Yeah.
So why does he call it a sonic screwdriver? He never actually screws or drives anything.
Basically, a sonic screwdriver.
He never screw drives.
No, a sonic screwdriver is the Doctor's tricorder.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, it's like that silly device from Star Trek Picard that uses your imagination to fix anything.
Oh yeah, in the last few seasons. It's actually it is a tricorder because he uses it to scan people.
Well, that's a tricorder as well. Yeah. That's whatever you want it to be.
But yeah, time travel is the basis to move the plot along. As I say,
it's the basis for setting up the plot, in my opinion. Occasionally, it is also a major plot motivation device too. But for the most part, in the series, it's the special sound effect noise shows up. Doctor and companion walk out. Hey, where are we this week?
Yeah, and you don't see it until the end.
Yeah, but occasionally it is vital to certain episodes. More often than not, like mid-season cliffhangers, penultimate episodes, finales, and whatnot.
And it's not the only one. The Time Lords have a fleet of them.
Yeah.
So it's
how many Doctors have we had now?
We have had.
You said 13, right?
1, 2. So we had William Hartnell, Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee, Tom Baker, Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McCann, Chris Eccleston, David Tennant, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, Jodie Whittaker. So 13.
All right. And okay, so we got Jodie Whittaker. Does that mean with a female Doctor, did we have a male companion in this later season? Because just to be clear, I haven't watched since David Tennant's series.
The best Doctor.
I got bored of it.
So basically, like you said, the companion was strange in Doctor Who because
Why was she homosexual?
no, hang on. So no, I mean the companion in Doctor Who as a whole.
It's not always necessarily a love interest.
The companion was never a love interest until we got to the new Doctor. In fact, a lot of the times the Doctor really talks down to the companion because the companion is a dumb human.
And it's also interesting given the time era that they didn't insist on there being romantic relationships between the companion, because that's in an era of film and television where the main lead and the main male lead and the main female lead were meant for each other.
But if you look at the original Doctors, they were all older men to simulate the Doctor being old and wise, and you could never question it. And he always had a younger companion. It was only as we started getting towards...
Isn't it Tennant and Rose basically the first time they have an actual
it starts with Christopher Eccleston. And Chris Eccleston would have been the Doctor for multiple series if they could have come to terms. And Chris Eccleston even has come out and saying that one of the biggest mistakes he made in his career was walking away from Doctor Who.
What, it wasn't playing Malachi in
Thor the Dark World? No. But then
Malekith, sorry.
Yeah, then they brought in David Tennant, and the chemistry between David Tennant and Billie Piper was awesome. That's why they pushed that towards a romantic feeling, and that was the
Doesn't he create a temporal, parallel universe for her to go live happily ever after with him?
Well, he creates like a clone of himself, and then he's and
then he leaves them on a planet.
So first off, he takes Rose out of the picture and to save her, and he puts her in like a different dimension or parallel universe, and then a few episodes go by, and then he creates a clone of himself that isn't the full Time Lord. It's a human version of him, and he deposits him with Billie Piper so we can have the happy ending of David Tennant's Doctor and Billie Piper.
Clone will live. He will live an average lifespan so that he will die with her.
He's got one heart. He's not a Time Lord, and then but obviously
does she know that it's a clone?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Because she sees him deposit it, but he's got all his memories and everything.
It's still weird.
Well, no, the weird part about it is you actually see the Doctor has feelings for Rose and has to leave her to save her. And that's the whole point of that. That part of the story is good. Then we got on to Matt Smith. He was one of the first ones to have dual companions.
And a bow tie.
Yes, bow ties are cool. And a fez. Fezzes are cool.
I never watched that series.
It's great.
Isn't
series.
that yeah?
Now he has a love interest in that. So spoilers for Doctor Who, guys. So we're not talking much about time travel here, but we're just talking about Doctor Who. So in that,
we're trying to establish whether or not it's a serviceable plot device.
So
clearly the way we're talking about this, it obviously is a serviceable plot device in Doctor Who.
So in the Matt Smith series, the very first episode, he meets a young kid called Amelia Pond, I think it is, and that's Karen Gillan. He then comes back later on when she's an adult, and that's the first episode, how they meet. But Karen Gillan's character has a boyfriend, and her and a boyfriend are the companions throughout the show.
Yeah, didn't Rose have a boyfriend originally as well?
No, she'd broken up from him. But he
goes on adventures with Christopher Eccleston.
I think he joins Torchwood. But then
Torchwood's brilliant.
Yeah, but Karen Gillan's boyfriend, it just basically comes in and out of it. So, she's with the Doctor, and he comes in and out. But then that's eventually how they write out Karen Gillan, is her and a boyfriend go off and do that.
Well, no, realistically, she went on and became
Guardians of the Galaxy. But that is the first one where you actually find out that the Doctor has a girlfriend, Alex Kingston's character, and she's a time traveler. She's also Amy Pond's. Amy Pond and Rory's daughter. So the Doctor's companions have a kid who falls in love and has a relationship with the Doctor at a different time in space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's brilliant writing. Alex Kingston's brilliant. I've loved Alex Kingston from first time I saw
So
her.
time travel in Doctor Who, both films and TV show alike, is just a canvas. It is a canvas for the writers to use their imagination to whatever.
And the greatest thing that happens is when it starts to get a little bit too complicated and convoluted, they just fucking forget about it.
That's what I say. Imagination, right? They're not trying to be 100%
accurate,
scientifically accurate about it. They're just using it as a way to just get your imagination flowing and tell some stories. All right, we've got a female Doctor now. With Jodie Whittaker.
Yep.
We've had male and female companions. Do you feel like the fan base of Doctor Who are ready for a LGBTQ Doctor?
Well,
Would that even be reasonable for the Doctor?
why not?
Because if the Doctor can be any gender, the Doctor, for all intents and purposes, is non-binary.
Well, we've already had a gay character in Doctor Who. Captain Jack Harkness.
Is he?
Yeah.
I love that character.
He's awesome.
That's why I like Torchwood.
Yeah. But he's awesome in Doctor Who and Torchwood.
Yeah. He's better in Torchwood, though.
Well, yeah, because
it's
they get to expand on his character as well. But I could tell you this. So when it was announced that Doctor Who was going to be a woman, there was an uproar. Fuck knows why, because I think she's awesome. But that's because she's a Yorkshire lass.
We're not going to single out any specific idealism out there, but we know, as Star Trek and Star Wars fans, that there's a lot of people who are super hesitant and scared of change. That's what that is.
Well,
we don't need to get too much into that.
This is what annoys me a little bit about when it comes to sci-fi characters being male and female. First off, the Doctor's a fucking alien. They might not have male and female genders.
They might just
have
have 5
like
genders.
Yeah, one of my favourite characters of a recent sci-fi show I've watched was I forgot the first name. They play the Trill human hybrid in Discovery season 3.
Oh, no, they're not Trill. They're human, then they have a symbiote in them. You're talking about
that's
Adira.
why I said human.
Adira Tal.
Adira Tal, that's the one. Yeah, played by a non-binary character, and they make a point of it. One of my favourite characters of that season.
They're played by a non-binary actor. Characters aren't played by characters.
Playing a non-binary character.
Playing a non-binary character, and actually they come out in the episode in one of the episodes too, because for the majority of the series they're referring to Adira as a she.
Yes.
And Adira comes out and says, "Actually, it's they. I never really felt like a he or a she."
And do you know what? That's so.
Did you know though that their boyfriend Gray is played by a transgender male?
No, and again, I didn't even think about it. And like, I read an article about people pointing out that they
did make a big deal about these things. Did the media?
Yeah,
like it was like StarTrek.com were like the first transgender actor to play a character in Star Trek and whatnot.
Well,
but this is what I think though. To us, we're going to be like, look, we don't. We try to avoid being prejudiced in our lives. We're not driven by hate, and we're not in the business of getting in anyone's personal business. But at the end of the day, I don't mind them sensationalizing the casting of these transgender actors because they're a marginalized minority.
Yeah.
So to them, getting that attention is fantastic and great for them. Think of how it must feel. We will never know that because we're white straight males.
But honestly, the way they handled it, so we moved on from Doctor Who to Discovery as they used time travel to basically reboot the series.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, in the same way we were saying that Doctor Who uses the plot device of time travel to pretty much just set up each episode, Star Trek Discovery Season 3 did it to set up an entire season. And for all intents and purposes, as you mentioned, reboot it.
And not just set up the season, but set up what they're going to do from now on. And
because tongue firmly in cheek, there's no more Red Angel suit. There was only one time Crystal, even though they could go to Borath and go get a bunch more. But
we never know. There might not be any left.
Well, Borath might have exploded like Praxis did.
We know Discovery Season 1 and 2 had its flaws. 1 being better than 2 because we both like Discovery, and that might get us a lot of subscribers. It might get us down to 1 tomorrow.
It's going to get us a lot of dislikes.
We know Season 1 had its flaws, predominantly with how it looked, I thought.
Okay, my opinion on that is that it would have looked fine if that would have just been set in the 24th or 25th century.
Yeah. And that's what we discussed off camera, that when Discovery first came out and they brought out the premise of the show, we couldn't believe that they were attempting another prequel after Star Trek Enterprise. I like Enterprise, but it got a lot of undue hate, to be honest. So they tried the prequel thing. I was very surprised with Discovery they tried it again. But Season 1 was okay. In fact, Season 1 had a really good time travel episode. Or was that in Season 2? The Harry Mudd episode.
No, that's season 1. That's the best. Even with season 3, that is the best episode of Star Trek Discovery.
And it's a time travel episode.
It's called Magic to make the sanest man go mad. That's the name of the episode.
And that is a perfect episode that actually where time travel is used to affect the plot rather than it just to set up the plot.
It's also used in a completely unique way. Well, okay. I won't say completely unique, but it's different to what we usually see. And the reason it's not unique is because of another Star Trek episode, which that episode is essentially an homage to.
Yeah.
Cause and Effect from Star Trek The Next Generation. It's essentially the same story, except instead of being caught in a time loop, they're caught in a little revenge fantasy from Harry Mudd.
Harry Mudd, played awesomely by
Rainn Wilson, is it?
Rainn Wilson from... Is it Rainn? Yeah, Rainn Wilson from The Office. But yeah, there you go. There's Star Trek using time travel in season 1 of Discovery. Awesome. But then season 2 started. We thought it was getting better, and then they had all the... Was it the writers who left, or the producers that changed halfway through season?
Okay, so season 1, the whole show was conceived by Brian Fuller. And it's strange because he is an absolute Star Trek aficionado. And for some reason, all of the weird changes, like the ships must be bronze.
The Klingons.
The Klingons had to have this new look. That all came from him. Which is why it's really weird, because a lot of people blame Kurtzman for the look of Star Trek Discovery, but most of it is his fault. And so he was moved on before the show even wrapped filming in the first season. So the first season was kind of shaky. It was up and down. I think they went through two more showrunners before the end of the season, and then when they got to season 2, they had the same situation again. The mandate was this needs to be more fun and more in line with the original series. We've got to try to get some visual continuity back into it. And halfway through that season, they moved on from showrunners again.
And it was funny because towards the end of season 1, the Terran Empire story is by far the strongest storyline. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. I'm not going to give away any spoilers for it. So season 1 ends on a high. I thought, all right, good. I see.
Yes, we instilled someone to be in power, to be Chancellor of the Klingon Empire through coercion and the threat of destroying everyone with a mass genocide device.
So we've talked about this. Star Trek fans love visual continuity.
It's the number one important thing to the average Star Trek nerd.
A lot of the JJ films get bad rap because they don't look fucking anything like original Trek.
Well, but it's also kind of silly because a lot of Star Trek has visual problems. Like the only reason the motion picture changes work is because it's the future. So you could be like, well, they might have decided to put everybody in pajamas instead. Or, well, they might have started to have long, thin nacelles instead of rounded ones with bussard collectors at the end. Yeah. Like it's all pedantic nerd shit, really, when it comes down to it.
It is, and
I appreciate when you maintain continuity, but at the end of the day, as long as the stories are good,
and realistically, the continuity only started from TNG. With at the end of TNG, the Deep Space Nine uniforms were a evolution, how you could expect uniforms to evolve. Same with Voyager, same with...
but just Star Trek The Next Generation does show the red, Navy military-style uniforms that were around still when Picard was...
Yeah, in the Enterprise C episode.
Well, and in Tapestry.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, though, is continuity only really came in from TNG onwards for the shows. And then that slightly got adapted into the movies with the TNG movies.
So we were talking about time travel.
Well, we are, because it's a transition of time. But we know Star Trek fans like visual continuity.
Well, Star Wars fans like visual continuity as well.
And that was the problem with one of the major problems with Discovery. But they took time travel when they got all this fan hate at the end of season 2, because the end of season 2 was a mess.
It was mostly a mess, not because of the battle. The battle, I get, they had a vision of what they wanted that battle to look like. They wanted it to look like carriers fighting carriers, like naval warfare with fighters and stuff. They were kind of like trying to do a Battlestar Galactica sort of.
They just went over the top with the small ships.
Well, but also though, that's not how starships in the Star Trek future fight. Ship-to-ship combat is more akin to tall ship combat.
Yeah.
Broadsides.
Wrath of Khan.
Exactly. Whereas the whole like point defense cannons and and like huge flak fields and stuff. That's not how starships in the Star Trek universe.
Well, no, because they don't fire, apart from photon torpedoes, that they don't fire solid projectiles. So you don't need PDCs and flat cannons.
And even then, a photon or a quantum or a multiphasic torpedo, they don't work without that technology. If you just fired the projectile, you just basically...
You get hit by Spock's coffin.
Yeah, you basically got just like a railgun,
Yeah.
which a railgun would not get through.
No,
shields.
so that's why the end of season 2, they were like, we've got a lot of how do we save this? We use time travel, and they did. They brought back a story from
Now the time crystal in season 2 of Star
It's a
Trek
MacGuffin.
is a MacGuffin.
Yeah, I was thinking. So, but like at the start of season 1, we had the Red Angel with the showing up around the universe, and then it got swamped when they changed the creators halfway through. And then we had this control storyline. Then they quickly brought back, it's like, oh shit, we made a mistake. Quickly bring back the Red Angel. This thing jumps through time. Put it on Burnham. Let's send Discovery way into the future.
It's interesting because I'd love to know if the Red Angel had a different direction initially.
I think it probably did.
I think that the common ground is it was definitely her mum. Like that was always meant to be her mum.
Yes.
The way that because remember, Control comes into it a little bit before they find that out in the show. What I believe is that the whole concept of Burnham actually taking over the suit and then flying around different
It's how they used to put...
I actually think that was an afterthought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's what they brought in towards the end to say, right, shit, we got to get Discovery into the future, wipe out any existence of Discovery so the timelines kind of work and we can reset this.
You know what would be really fascinating?
What?
If this was actually the long play all along, though. And this is what they were planning. Because if it was what they were planning, why didn't they just start season 1 in the 32nd century from the get-go?
Well, that's basically where we're at now. We're now at a show about an ancient star, and I love the premise. We use time travel to get an ancient Starfleet ship way in the future. Star Trek Discovery used time travel in a way
to reboot.
And I want to say it was probably a last gasp effort because I think if they'd have stuck on the course they were going, it would have been cancelled.
And it's funny because it's not the first time Star Trek did that.
No,
The J.J. Abrams Star Trek did that. They used time travel as a way to reboot the series.
But then the reboot didn't work. Now, Star Trek Discovery...
Did you catch that in season 3, by the way, when Cronenberg's talking to Giorgio about the problems with people out of time, being out of temporal sync with themselves?
The fact that these...
Did you catch that the guy in the old TNG uniform, the alien that it shows him, the temporal agent, was from a universe that was created by a Romulan incursion?
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
Yeah, I did
talking
catch
about
that,
the
yeah.
Kelvin universe.
And that was see again.
Everyone's going for the multiverse now.
Every a very good wink. So
did you not catch what I just said there? Like, everyone's going for the multiverse now.
Okay, well we can cover that on another topic, multiverse rather than time travel. So time travel was used well there. It's given new life to a series that potentially could have got cancelled. Let's look at Star Trek as using time travel poorly.
Just real quick though, does it make sense?
Yeah.
How?
Well, so you're a show writer. You want a blank slate. What's the easiest way to do it? Propel you to a future that's never been written about.
But why didn't they just send them back? Like we've fixed the future, so now to avoid complications and to avoid breaking the temporal accords, we're going to just pull out this little temporal fixing device and we're going to send you all back.
But
to
remember,
Earth.
Discovery doesn't know what the temporal accords are.
Yeah, they do. Dadmiral Vance tells them all about it.
Dadmiral?
Yeah.
Who's Dadmiral?
Dadmiral Vance.
That's the
Admiral.
That's the lass who sacrifices herself in the room with the torpedo.
No, the Admiral Vance from season 3.
Yeah, but no,
We call him Dadmiral. It's an affectionate name for him.
So, but what I'm saying,
did you not realize he's like the only, other than Tal, who's dead now because Tal is inside Adira.
Yeah.
The only admiral we see throughout the whole series is Vance.
Well, I want to tell you something about. But what I'm saying is the reason why they don't go back in time is because first off, they have no time crystal. They have no MacGuffin crystal, and it would be against the temporal prime directive to send them back because they're not allowed to.
So then they should kill him.
No, because
that's why. Did you know that's why they rechristen Discovery the A, like the NCC 1031A, even though it's not actually a new ship.
No, it's just refit.
They do it because to keep the records from people will be wondering, wait a second, why is this 900-year-old ship all of a sudden out of commission?
No, they
apparently got destroyed.
Yeah, they.
Well, it's not. It's a brand new ship. Don't worry about it.
The show writers knew they had to write their way out of a problem. Time travel is always a great... Now, that's where time travel's a MacGuffin, when you use it to write yourself out of a corner that you've written yourself into. And it can be used well, and it can be used poorly. Look at Star Trek 2009. They used time travel there to change the universe so that they could take the franchise in a different direction. And for me, it didn't work. First movie was okay. Lots of it about it I didn't like. Again, predominantly visual. But then Into Darkness and then Beyond's a good Star Trek story.
Yeah, but we've already established the new timeline.
So there's two instances of time travel in Star Trek that didn't. Yeah. One that went well, one that didn't go well.
So we talked about Star Trek Voyager last time. There's one episode that we didn't talk about, and it's not necessarily time travel, but it uses the past as a way to tell a story. And I'm talking about the Star Trek Voyager episode Flashback, where Tuvok is having these problems. He's having these mental breakdowns.
You mean the award-winning Star Trek episode?
Flashback.
It's brilliant.
And Janeway goes in through a mind meld into his dreams to go into the past to when he apparently served aboard the USS Excelsior during the events of the Khitomer Accords. Which, and funnily enough, talking about all these gatekeeping Star Trek fans who bow down to continuity...
Let it be told.
Who bow down to continuity. There's a ridiculous gaffe in that episode, and I'm not going to make you guess because I don't want the dead air time. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what it is. His friend, I forget the name of the character.
Valtari.
He dies, and it turns out he's the repressed memory that Tuvok has. He feels guilt for what happened.
And
to
the
him.
alien jump.
Except when you watch Star Trek. The Undiscovered Country, and he's like, Sulu contacts them at the end. And he's like, "Good to see you in action one more time." He stood in the back behind them, and there's no sign of Tuvok either. Which makes you wonder: is that a temporal universe? Is that did Tuvok create like an alternate reality?
So, what you can remember about that is it's not actual time travel; it's how Tuvok remembers it, and we all know that.
But he had to have been there, though. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm saying he was there, but when we watch Undiscovered Countries, he's never on the bridge crew when we see the screen.
But why is the guy still alive?
Because that might be just the alien jumping, and the guy didn't die.
Basically, shut up. That's why.
Yeah. But you got to remember.
But this is what I want. See, that's what I feel when I like. I'm a humongous Star Trek nerd. Just look at our banner up here. We're obviously huge Star Trek nerds, but I hate it when Star Trek fans throw a hissy fit over continuity problems and act like holier than thou, like Rick Berman era Star Trek can't be touched when shit like that happens all the time.
They have selective memories. They only remember the good stuff and not the bad stuff.
Yeah. Because so far with the new era of Star Trek, we've had 3 shows. One's a cartoon. We've had one series that's been corrected many times and stumbled along the way, but reached its 3rd season now because of this time travel plot device, and finally
produced a phenomenal season.
Yeah, and it's finally on its way to success, which is funny. That's the rule. That's the rule of law with Star Trek series. It always takes 3. Unless you're the original series, it always takes 3 seasons to get going.
What year was Pulaski in?
Season 2.
Yeah, because. It was
Season 3 of Star Trek The Next Generation is where it really starts rolling. But you see, Season 1 and 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation do have good episodes, though.
And same as Season 1 and 2 of Discovery.
Exactly.
Have good episodes.
Do you know what's interesting as well that we kind of forgot? We act like that's the only time travel plot device in Discovery. It's not. Because we have the reappearance of the Guardian of Forever later on.
Oh yeah,
and he helps Giorgio go back in time.
I wanted to.
So that
we haven't discussed this yet, but since I finished watching it, there's one real aspect of Discovery season 3 that I didn't like. They kept writing out good characters out of the.
They had no choice with Giorgio because she's going to do her own series. She's off to do the Section 31 series.
But I'd prefer to have kept her in.
They've already started doing it, so.
Yeah. But they wrote her out to put her in another show when she was a great character in Discovery.
Well, yeah, she's going to be the lead in her own show.
And then they wrote out.
I know. Nobody asked for a Section 31 show, but given the way that that Michelle Yeoh plays the evil. Well, I guess not evil anymore. The kind of like ambiguous grey area Giorgio as she is now. The way she plays that character is great, and I'd love to see her.
Well,
in her own.
that two-parter was one of the highlights. Even though at the end,
oh yeah, everyone has such a great time playing their evil selves.
Terran Empire.
This goes for even when they did it in Deep Space Nine, and this goes for when they did it in the original series.
Okay,
and then Enterprise as well.
Deep Space Nine, probably the best time travel Star Trek episode.
Oh yeah, we're talking about the
Trials and Tribulations. That is a masterpiece of not just script writing, but actual film editing, film creation. The fact that they managed to take Sisko, Jadzia, the most important...
All of them. They're all at some point on...
No, they're not.
Kira's the only one who doesn't.
The most important man in Star Trek is on the Enterprise.
Yeah. Kira's the only one of the crew from DS9 though who's not there.
Now, going on to Star Trek Nerds.
I guess Quark as well.
Yeah.
And Rom.
And,
okay,
and
Rom.
Garrick, yeah. It's the only four of them get transported. Five of them get transported over.
Odo goes with Worf.
Or six.
Odo goes with Worf to the space station,
and then
Bashir and Julian go over to the ship.
Bashir and Julian.
Yeah, Bashir
and himself.
Bashir. It's a Bashir.
Julian and Chief.
Julian Bashir and Chief O'Brien. They go over by themselves, and Sisko and Jadzia go over by themselves. So 6 in total.
But the fact of how they took that and wrote them into the episode Trouble with Tribbles is awesome. The fact that they brought back the actor that played the Klingon agent as an older guy
Gavin
is brilliant.
The thing that's greatest about that episode, though, it kind of ties into what I was saying about gatekeeping and continuity. That episode makes no sense.
No, and it makes fun of itself.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It makes no sense, and yet they tried their hardest to maintain visual continuity, and where they acknowledge where visual continuity shouldn't make sense, shouldn't even...
Yeah, when they wink to the camera when they're on about Klingons.
Like, where's the Klingons? Over there. It's like, where? They don't look like Klingons, and they look at him, and Worf's just like,
it is a long story. And we shall not talk about it.
We do not speak of it. Enterprise kind of screwed that up, in my opinion, by actually finding a way to explain it, which doesn't make any sense. Like,
no, because that what means that every single Klingon that the TOS met was a genetically altered super Klingon.
You just leave it up to the fact that show was made in the 60s, the movies were made in the 90s, the 80s, the TNG series were all made in the 90s, and Discovery is made in the new millennium. Just get over it.
The thing to me is when you're going to use the way they use time travel there is brilliant, because the setup's awesome. He gets visited by the
temporal police.
The temporal police, and he's just so smug and coy about it. They go back in time, they have their hijinks, and they don't affect the timeline, and they come back. It's awesome.
Oh no, but they say there's a little joke. It's like, how do you know you didn't affect the timeline?
Well, that's true. Yeah, if you're thinking of one linear time.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of brings me on to another Star Trek time travel related situation.
We were going to talk about other franchises here,
but it's great. I love letting loose talking about Star Trek. Star Trek First Contact. Now, Star Trek First Contact is purely a springboard jumping off point. There's absolutely no reason for time travel in that movie other than the fact that we need a situation where the crew are back in time helping Zefram Cochrane build the warp ship, because it makes no sense that the Borg did what they did. Why wouldn't they just go back in time in the Delta Quadrant
to
prehistoric times?
No, we've had this discussion, and I'll tell you.
Well, why didn't they go back in time to First Contact? Why? So why did they come to the planet?
Like 3 days before?
Yeah, why did they come where there's a fleet of ships that designed Akira's and Defiance designed to destroy Borg ships? Why would they attack then? They would go back in time in the Delta Quadrant, or even go back in time outside the solar system, travel across the solar system down to destroy First Contact and assimilate the Earth. It makes no sense that they have to set up this vortex whilst in orbit over Earth.
So let's take the premise of how they go back in time. That might be just a last-ditch effort that the Borg Queen does to escape. And she's doing it in a rush, and she
still doesn't make sense that they didn't just go back in time, back in the Delta Quadrant.
But this is the stupidest thing. Why do the Borg assimilate people?
To perfect themselves.
So, we've seen it in previous Trek episodes where the Borg ignore people because they're not worth assimilating, because they don't add any
Yeah, and
anything
so
to
they
their
go
own.
back in time and assimilate an inferior technical.
Earth.
Yeah.
It
Well,
makes-
it was you though who pointed out that they'd probably just for conventional means to get the Federation.
they were going back to blow up and stop
Yeah,
first contact.
to basically get the Federation from being a thorn in their side. But again, even that doesn't make sense because when the Earth is caught in the temporal,
It's all assimilate.
Yeah, the ship's caught. The Enterprise is caught in the temporal flux and not affected, which is convenient. and they see
temporal
and
vortex.
they see the Earth has all changed, which means so they assimilated Earth back then, and then did they just start to develop and procreate like regular people? Spread across the planet
Yeah,
like a normal civilization.
It was kind of like the fact that I understand why she picked that point to go back and destroy the Federation to get the thorn in the side out of the way.
To me, a cooler way
But
of
then
dealing with
why assimilate? Why not just annihilate Earth from?
which we know they do.
Yeah,
Do.
do. They tried to do anyway.
Well, but we also know that the Borg cube that assimilates Picard, we know that that's the same cube that they come across initially in Q Who, and we also know that they just destroyed the Elorians. They didn't assimilate the Elorians. They wiped them out. But anyway, going back now to the First Contact plot, you could have told that story without time travel. Because, like I say, time travel was just a means to get them back in time so they could have a little adventure with Zeph and Cochrane. You could still have the whole assimilation plot without any of that. Let's say the stakes even rise, because what could have happened is the Borg...
Steak.
I
all about
fucking love steak. So the Borg, let's say the Borg cube comes to Earth and gets wiped out, right? And but at the same time annihilates the fleet, and the only ship standing by the end is a derelict Defiant, because we need to get Worf on the ship, and the Enterprise. And the Enterprise is now in a war of attrition, as it is in the movie, with preventing the assimilation force that is getting onto the Enterprise. If the Enterprise falls, they're the last line of defense, and the Earth will fall. That's how it should have been.
Yeah. So what they could have done is when they were derelict, when they dropped their shields to beam Worf over, the Borg cube explodes, but the Borg Queen and 5 drones transports over into a Jeffries tubes and starts to assimilate the Enterprise. Yeah, so they could have told that story, but then it wouldn't have been called First Contact.
Well, but to me, First Contact was probably an afterthought. It makes you wonder, because it does feel like two movies. It feels like you've got the War of Attrition on the Enterprise movie, and then you've got the
stuff with
the
Riker.
Zeph and Cochrane adventure. It's two different movies going on there. And to me, this is why I think First Contact doesn't utilize time travel as a good plot device. It's very...
See, if they were going to do it that way, what they should have done is double down on one or the other. Like you said, if they double down on the assimilate Earth and they've got to assimilate the Enterprise first, that all happens in the 23rd century. If they're doing that, a nefarious, because it could have been any aliens, it could have been the Romulans have figured out time travel, but it's only a one-off shot and they want to destroy the Federation. So their idea is they know when First Contact was, so the Romulans go back in time to stop First Contact. So the Enterprise is tasked to go back in time and stop the Romulans. You're right. It's two stories that were smashed together.
They just want to make a movie about the Borg. It's just that. But it's also kind of interesting because it does open up some really cool fan theories. One of my favorite fan theories is actually something that explains the reason that the Enterprise, NX-01 Enterprise exists, and also why Discovery timeline looks and feels slightly different. The explanation being that when the Borg went back and created a new timeline. The Enterprise didn't fix the timeline. The Enterprise just were pulled into this new timeline and through the temporal way
and made sure First Contact happened.
And now then when the Enterprise go back into the future, they're actually in this alternate timeline now that has an NX-01 Enterprise and USS Discovery, and so on and so on. So it's not different enough. It's still very much the same. It's like, imagine the original timeline and the Prime timeline are actually running super concurrently with
there's
each
millions of multiverses. There's a multiverse where we're doing this show, and I'm sat over there.
And you're on this side of the table.
Yeah, and there's loads of universes where we might have different flags and stuff. So that's what you're on about there is they went back in time. They still made sure First Contact happened, but they made enough changes that it slightly branches off.
Well, yeah, there's so many changes. Think about it, because Zeph and Cochrane now knows about the existence of the Federation in the future.
Yeah, so he
knows that humanity survives.
It'll instantly change how he makes decisions as well, because all his decisions beforehand, he had no idea of what was going on in the future.
The problem is there's the two kinds of universes though that we establish from episode 1. There's the Back to the Future alternate timeline, right, which branches off as a result of a change, or like the Donnie Darko situation too, which once fixed brings you back in time with what you have, which is technically what the Enterprise did. But
see, I think though with time travel that intrinsically links into the multiverse. And a good example of that is the DC TV universe, the CW universe.
The original multiverse.
Yeah, where you have Earth 1, 2, 3, 4, and you have all these different multiverses because, as we know, that every...
Is there time travel in that?
Not necessarily time travel. It's travel between multiverses, but the explanation of why Earths are different is for decisions that were made in the past. And that's how you would get the branching off the multiverse.
So there we have another unique way of using time travel as a... Well, it's not necessarily time travel. It's just the Hugh Everett interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
It's just the mere existence of of multiple universes is different positions in time happening and playing out in different scenarios in different ways.
So
choices being different.
Yeah.
Let's go delve into something like, I don't know. Do you consider Groundhog Day a time travel movie?
No.
Why not?
For the same reason I don't consider Year of Hell a time travel movie. Because by the end of it, there is no time travel. Basically, the
timeline has been reset.
Yeah, him resetting time, to me in Groundhog Day, is a higher force wanting to teach Phil Connors how to be a nice guy and not the twat that he is. That's the whole point I see in Groundhog. Even though Groundhog Days...
It still involves him having to travel back 24 hours every day.
He's in a loop, but once the loop is closed and he's a better person...
How's it any different than cause and effect? Or magic to make the Sinis Man go mad? Other than the fact that the force behind it is...
We'd never find out.
Exactly. So it's time travel.
Groundhog Day is not even a nice movie if you think about it.
Oh, no. Phil Connors is a horrible man.
In fact, okay, so I read an article about Groundhog Day where Phil actually dies, and all his trips back in time to teach him a lesson
is him in limbo.
Is him in purgatory,
and he can't move on to heaven and be happy with Andy McDowell's character
until he learns the errors of his ways. So, he's not actually. To me, that puts a better twist on the story than him actually doing what he does. Because if you take what he actually does, where he learns, is it Nancy's, all her stuff to trick her into having sex with him.
He violates all those women.
It's very disturbing. So I like to think Groundhog Day, rather than a time travel movie, guy dies and now he's in a loop until he learns the errors of his ways and earns his way to a better afterlife.
Yeah, but I mean, if God and the afterlife exist, then what is time travel other than just divine intervention, right? You know.
I kick ass for the Lord.
So basically, Doc Brown, as essentially he's Prometheus. No, not Prometheus. Who is it who steals the power of fire from the gods?
It's Prometheus.
No, Prometheus is the god, is the sun god. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
the Greek mythological figure who claims the ability to create fire from Prometheus. That is basically what Doc Brown is.
Yeah.
He steals the ability of time travel from the gods.
So I see Groundhog Day more as a afterlife movie rather than time travel. But one movie that I do see...
Address what I just said, though.
What?
That essentially, if God exists in this world of Groundhog Day, then God is manipulating time.
Yes. Well, no.
Yes!
No, God's not manipulating time. God's manipulating Phil Connors'
He's manipulating
psyche.
Phil Connors'
because none of it actually
perception.
happens.
Yeah, he's manipulating. How do you know? Well, not I mean it does.
So
we're talking about metaphysics here, man. Like,
yeah, so this is what
anything really happen, man?
This is what I mean by it's not a time travel movie. When he goes and kills himself and kills Punxsutawney Phil when he drives off the end of the cliff, the rest of the timeline doesn't run with Andy McDowell and the cameraman being
it does.
Psychologically because Phil's dead.
It does. It does because the day it happens in the movie. The day resets every day. They see him on the table, so his dead body has to be laid out on a table in a morgue somewhere until the timeline resets.
Well, no, because for them it don't reset.
No, but it does. But the timeline does reset.
But for
They don't. They're not aware of it
Yeah,
resetting, but it does.
well,
reset.
no, for Andy McDowell and the cameraman who sees body on the slab, it doesn't reset for them. And
they continue.
They
on
continue
with
and
a
have to deal with the fact that they just saw Phil commit suicide with the groundhog.
and kill
It's
the
fucking.
groundhog.
It's a horrible movie.
It is. It's
The
terrible.
purgatory thing kind of made it palatable.
I thought we were going to go lighthearted.
No, it's on. Okay, let's go lighthearted.
Bill and Ted.
No. I want to touch first because we're
going to finish with Bill and Ted.
we got a comment and ask for it. Let's talk about Terry Gilliam's masterpiece, Time Bandits.
Oh God, yeah.
So there is a movie
Forgot
that
Universe.
that time travel is. Yes, thanks Mass Effect Universe for this comment. So we're going to because it's one of my favorite movies from Terry Gilliam because this is where time travel is the whole crux of the movie.
Well, but he also creates a mythology around time travel. It's very similar in many senses to the TARDIS, relative dimensions in time and space, because they have the map, right?
That shows them where all the gates are.
That shows them where all the conduits and all the passages through time are, and how certain events in time are connected with each other and whatnot.
But there again, though, closely connected to a time travel movie is the the thought and the aspects of the god and the devil, because the god is their boss, and David Warner is the devil.
Yeah. Well, he's evil.
Yeah, which is
he's
the
evil
devil,
incarnate.
and they even make him look a bit like the devil.
Yeah,
and
I love that bit where his subordinate asks him a question and he zaps him.
It just blows him up.
That's a good question.
That movie's brilliant. So
It's so good.
The young
I have
kid
it on Blu-ray.
The young kid is basically the audience because he doesn't actually really do anything.
Well, and he's neglected by his parents as well.
Yeah. You've got great performances from all these good actors who just come in and do little bit parts, like Sean Connery, John Cleese, Michael Palin, Shelley Duvall. They all come in and they all have just little parts in.
Well, John Cleese is Robin Hood.
Yeah. And
Hello.
And they rob. They. I think is it. No, it's the highwayman that robs Michael Palin and Shelley Duvall. Sean Connery becomes like the father figure in ancient times, but it's such a bizarre movie because then they go to a time where they have that giant.
Yeah, the kid's called Kevin.
Oh, he's a Kevin, is he?
Yeah. Craig Warnock is
Yeah.
the guy.
You've got the part with the giant with the ship where it's on his head.
Well, this is what I was talking about. How it's relative dimensions in time and space, like the TARDIS.
Yeah.
They're not always on Earth.
No.
Sometimes they're in a fantasy world. Sometimes they're in hell. And remember, God is the supreme being. And
Yeah, he's the boss.
Yeah, so it also almost kind of like portrays God and the devil, not so much as the Christian Bible God and devil, but as like they're extra dimensional beings who are just in control of cosmic forces.
All the guys who play the what's the politically correct term from Little People?
They're dwarves.
Okay, so all the guys who play the dwarves
They are actually like Lord of the Rings
Dwarves.
They're dwarves. Yeah.
And you've even got a great, phenomenal performance by Kenny Baker, who played R2-D2. Just had to drop that in there. Mm-hmm. Can't go a show without mentioning Star Wars.
And Randall.
Randall's awesome. I don't think he was in many things, though.
No. What's the actor called? I got it up here. David Rappaport.
Yeah.
He is a TV actor.
And then David Warner's phenomenal as evil. It was actually quite scary, a movie as a kid with the goat-headed skull monsters that chase him at the end as well.
Well, that was back in an era of filmmaking where
you could get away with that.
Yeah, there was no such thing as a kids' film.
So you've got a film there where without time travel, the movie doesn't exist. Christ, it's called Time Bandits, for God's sake. But it's a very simple...
And it's just in a time as well where someone who was a visionary could make a film and it didn't need no sequel, it didn't need no reboot or prequel. You've just got directed, produced, and written by Terry Gilliam.
So
I wish we could go back in time to back when movies were more substance and less style.
Here's one for you about that movie.
Although that's the thing about Time Bandits, it's got so much style as well.
But here's the one thing about Time Bandits. It hasn't got a very convoluted, complex way of traveling through time.
It's super straightforward.
It's just a map.
It's a highway of time conduits, essentially.
But here's what makes the question. Do you have to have the map to see the doorways to travel through time? Because if not...
Yeah.
What happens if you accidentally walk through a time?
Because remember the very first one in his room when the Supreme Beam shows up and they have to push the wall. Like you need to specifically.
They know it's behind.
You
them.
need to specifically know the exact coordinate in space and time to get there. That's how they get on the Titanic. Don't forget, because if you think about it,
I forgot about the Titanic.
How the hell did they get onto the Titanic? Because the Titanic's a moving object, right? Like, at what point did they get on the Titanic? Oh, I mean, they could have got on it while it was still in port. If maybe the conduit takes them to Southampton.
Well, no, because they would have had to have a ticket. They'd have had to beat Jack at cards.
Exactly. They end up.
But there you go. There's
a
time travel movie that uses time travel as the main crux of the movie. It's funny. It's the style of it's fun to watch. It's pretty on the screen. It takes liberties.
It's a Terry Gilliam film, of course.
I will say this: it's an acquired taste. Like I know some people that would watch it and just be like, "I don't get it."
That entire trilogy is an acquired taste, but I mean, he's a Monty Python member, so of course.
Okay, let's move on to a time travel movie that is just batshit crazy but funny as fuck before we finish off with a big one. And I want to say, because when I saw it in the movies, the premise of it is just stupid. But the Hot Tub Time Machine, it's one of the greatest time travel movies of all time.
Well, so I kind of liken it to almost Groundhog Day, because you've got Chevy Chase's character is this mystical character,
the hot tub repair guy.
Yeah, he is essentially giving them, the four of them, who are all in various. Not the kid, obviously, but
the kid's not in the greatest spot of his life.
Yeah, they're all in.
His mum's a drunken. He's from a broken home. He lives with his uncle.
But he didn't exist in the 80s where he goes back, so he's the only one of them who doesn't change. He's almost kind of like
he's their conscience.
Yeah, whereas they're all going back to be given it's kind of like
it's what we all wish for.
It's kind of like a Christmas Carol story almost. It's they're going back to be given a chance to do things differently. And the only difference being in Christmas Carol, he doesn't actually get to go back and change the mistakes. He gets to go back, see what his mistakes were, and change in the present. Whereas, as we find out, I forget the character's name. Lou, because it becomes Lugal and Motley Lou. But he goes back and actually stays back in those days and ends up becoming the lead singer of Motley Crue.
But the brilliance of this movie is every single one of us out there has thought what we would do if we could go back and do things differently. We've all thought about it. That's why this movie's brilliant. Time travel, we've all, pined for, oh man, I wish I'd done this differently.
We all have regrets.
Yeah, so...
He was going to kill himself, if you remember.
Well, yeah, it's
a pretty dark film, if you think about it.
It's a dark film at the start, but it's a film about friendship, it's a film about regrets, it's a film about wanting to go back and do things differently.
And also a film about mental health as well.
Because... realistically, the way that movie should have ended is if the hot tub repair guy had had his way, they would have all gone back, jumped in the hot tub, and gone back to their own times. But it's only right at the end that Lou decides that he wants to stay. Because, like you say, Lou's in a dark place where he was going to kill himself.
He had nothing.
This movie is meta on so many levels. Not only does it address what we just talked about, the feelings of regret that we have throughout our lives and how we wish we could go back and change them, it does. But it also addresses a similar sort of thing that we have about perceived memories of how things were. Lou's character, the character Lou, is in a situation where he wants to kill himself. His life's shit. So what do his friends say? Fuck it, we'll take him back to Kodiak Valley. That's where we went as kids and we had a great holiday. And he gets all excited about it. They show up and it's a dump. It's a dive. But they're still like, yeah, we still had a great time. Look, it says cocks and dicks on the thing. But if you think about what actually happened to them, that was a shit holiday.
Because he gets his ass kicked, doesn't he?
Lou gets the character Lou gets his ass kicked. John Cusack's character gets broken up with and stabbed in the eye. And Craig Robinson's character bombs at the live show. So they actually, that holiday that they remembered as being awesome was shit. But they remember it as being awesome. So when they go back and they do it differently. So not only does John Cusack still break up with his girlfriend and get stabbed in his eye, though, he meets Lizzie Chaplin, he meets her and finds a more kindred spirit. Craig Robinson's character goes back, plays a dynamite show, and then robs Black Eyed Peas. And then Lou actually goes back and kicks Sebastian Stan's ass. And at the end of it, Lou's whole demeanor is different. The fact that the bully that beat him up on the holiday, that was obviously one of the many things along his life that caused him to have mental health issues to the point where he wanted to kill himself, he's overcome that now. And that's why he wants to stay. He feels like he's a new person and he's got a second chance.
Well, but don't they they leave him to fight that kid on his own?
No, so in the original timeline, his friends don't show up and he gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, that's what
so
I'm
he
saying.
tells
They
him, you
leave
better
him.
be there. But it happens again. And that's why he's sat on top of the roof. And at that point, they're like, fuck it, let's just go back. And he's had enough. He goes, I hate you, fucking. And they're just going to go back. But then they find out they need the Chernobyl to put in the time machine. And the only way to get the Chernobyl back is to go get it off Sebastian Stan's character.
So this is why I wanted us to discuss Groundhog Day and the Hot Tub Time Machine, because here's an example where time travel is again very ambiguous. It's not so much the scientific time travel that we know and we're familiar with. The story is using time as a way to tell stories about people's regrets and people's
more philosophical way of using it.
Exactly, because in the same way that Groundhog Day is designed to teach Phil Connors that he's a piece of shit and should really get his life on track, Hot Tub Time Machine is a way to show the three protagonists that things aren't
as bad
as they think they are, and things weren't as good as they think they are.
And that's the key thing, the fact that we've all got memories of stuff that when we really think back on it, we're like, actually, no, that was pretty
And it's funny
shit.
because when you think about it, Hot Tub Time Machine, out of all of the movies we've discussed this episode, is the one that has more to say about life,
yeah,
and what we do with it.
And it also, again, doesn't get bogged down in the time travel essence of it, because realistically, when John Cusack and Craig Robinson and the young lad come back, I forgot his name, come back, they have...
you mean the kid who plays Jacob?
Yeah.
It's Clark Duke.
They have no memory. So this is where it gets a little weird, because they have no memory of what's happened. So John Cusack is with Lizzie Kaplan and they've had a life together, but he has no memory of it. So it's a bit... Now we're into the kind of Back to the Future era where Marty McFly has actually murdered his family. Because when he goes back, he doesn't remember any of his good family. John Cusack does not remember any life with Lizzie Kaplan. Clark Duke has no memory of growing up with Lou and his mum.
Well, and you see, and that's where a movie like that gets a little cheeky, right? Because we know that we're not going to relate to the characters properly if that isn't the case. If they'd have all gone back and Lou was the only one who remembered what was going on, it might have been interesting, but at the end of the day, we're trying to relate to these
We kind of just gloss over that a little bit.
Yeah, we're trying to relate to these characters, so it makes sense for the film.
Because in real life, Lizzie Kaplan's character would be like, what's wrong with you? Because his entire character would have changed.
Yeah, like in Family Man.
Yes, there's another great time travel movie that we might have to put into part 3. So, Hot Tub Time Machine, great use of time travel. Let's move on to the telephone booth. And I'm not talking about Doctor Who again.
Did you just say the telephone booth?
Telephone booth.
The telephone booth?
Booth.
Telephone booth.
Telephone booth. And I'm not talking about Doctor Who. I'm talking about the greatest time travel movie of all time, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Which, talking about batshit crazy,
it's fucking brilliant.
It is also equally batshit crazy. Number one, it's a stoner movie. They are both just like
dumb as fuck.
Stoner loser kids who just hang out in their parents' garage trying to make it big as musicians. And then all of a sudden, they're just whipped into this time travel story where they find out that they become the saviors of human civilization.
So I've not watched the third one yet, and I should probly do that. But
it's good. It's not great.
What I want to say about all three of these movies before we actually delve deep into Bill and Ted.
They go to fucking hell for crying out loud in one of them.
Is these movies are so out there, but they're so much good fun. You don't even care that it doesn't really make any sense. You don't sit there and go, oh, well, that's stupid. It won't be.
Yeah, and coming back to now the Star Trek fan base that we were picking on earlier, this is one of the reasons that it really does my head in sometimes when they get really nitpicky. When people get nitpicky in general, because you can tell a good story without it making sense.
Yeah, Bill and Ted, the two I've watched are all completely off the charts.
Well, I mean, let's think about that. So let's talk about the first one. Excellent Adventure. They come from the future to tell these kids that if they don't pass their history report, then the future won't happen.
They'll be split up, I believe.
So how do they know that the future won't happen if the future did happen? Wouldn't the future not have happened? Or like, did something happen that prevented the future from happening? It's from a time travel point of view, it really doesn't make any sense.
No,
but they play around with the concept of time travel as a little sandbox tool, which is what ends up being the ultimate fun of the movie. For instance, two young stoner hippie kids
bouncing through time,
meeting up with historical figures like Genghis bloody Khan, and it's like they don't just meet up with him. Now, keep in mind, Genghis Khan is one of the most horrific world leaders in history who went around massacring millions, and they somehow managed to coerce him into a time machine phone booth with a fucking Twinkie.
Yeah,
like, and then in the future he gets preoccupied with sporting goods.
But not just that though. Let's look at all the characters. First off,
the first one they meet is Billy,
and
who was a horrible person in real life.
Yeah, but just the concept of that. They're still dressed in 1980s, so nobody questions when they're sat playing cards. What the fuck are you wearing?
Well, I mean, it's like you probably wouldn't, because especially back then, because you'd think about it. It's almost like in Back to the Future when part 3 when he walks into the saloon.
Guy thinks he's gonna try.
And it's like, the circus is in town, and like that's just kind of like the one recognition that we get from them that something's amiss. Realistically, the guy's not thinking to himself, "Oh, we got a time traveler here." No. So when Bill and Ted walk in, obviously people are going to be like, "Who the fuck are these guys?" They might just be like, "Oh, city slickers." Or
and
the best thing about that scene is that when they get into the fight scene and the big brawl starts happening, Bill and Ted are just sat there
watching it,
and they like acknowledge as well that they're totally weak and they can't possibly fight.
But if you think about just on the grand scale of things, all those people that they'd taken out of time, unless they could Men in Black their memories, it would completely fuck up their timelines.
I think it's supposed to be either you're just not supposed to ask that question and just shut the fuck up.
Again, that's exactly what it is.
Or there is like when Rufus takes them all back, he wipes their memories. It's kind of like an Infinity War Endgame situation where they have to be put back
at the exact same
time at the exact same spot with the exact same memories, or else weird temporal problems would happen. But then again, like I say, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure didn't think that far ahead.
Again, and you're not even supposed to ask that, because then you've got the best thing for me is you've got all these characters from throughout time that, let's say, if for some reason they all spoke English.
They're not characters, they're historical figures.
If they all spoke English, they'd all speak different versions of English from the time that they were there, and they wouldn't understand modern day things. But everybody understands everything. Socrates understands Sigmund Freud. In fact, Socrates doesn't at one point Socrates translate to Genghis Khan. He's fucking awesome.
He's the interpreter.
He's the interpreter. It's brilliant.
But this is where the movie can get really clever though at times. That's what I love about Bill and Ted, because he's the one who's interpreting, because he's the philosopher.
Yeah.
They even show that at the beginning, that they speak to him through
sands of time.
Yeah, through hand language, sign language, and whatnot.
It's so good because it's so silly.
Like they reference. All we are is dust in the wind, and then he references, without realizing it, the TV sitcom, soap opera series, through this, like, sands through the hourglass. These are the days. So are the days of our lives.
Days of our life. Yes. It's brilliant.
So it's set up. That's what I mean. You can make a good story without it making sense, because that's set up. It's set up so that it makes perfect sense within the constraints of the film. Because if we now go back to the time travel elements of it, once all these historical figures get caught after their hijinks in the mall, which is weird. It's like, why do they all break the law? And also,
they don't all break the law.
Well, so there's two examples of that. One is Beethoven. So the guy lets him play. He's trying to sell this to him, and he's like, "Here, take a look," and he lets him play. And then all of a sudden, he's like, "Nope, I don't want this," and he calls the cops in to come and arrest him.
So Beethoven's not doing anything.
And then there's also Abraham Lincoln. Because Abraham Lincoln, I guess he does sort of break the law.
They think he's
stolen the costume.
I'm Abraham.
All right, make with the hat and the silly beard.
The ones that don't break the law, funny enough, are Billy the Kid. He don't break the
Yeah,
law.
he does. He fucking shoots a gun.
Why does he shoot a gun?
He's like running through them all. He's like, yeah, and he shoots a gun
Yeah,
when they're
does
on.
it.
Yeah.
So Socrates doesn't. Sigmund Freud doesn't.
No, they're just guilty by association.
Joan of Arc does. Genghis Khan definitely does. Billy shoots his gun.
Well, Joan of Arc doesn't break the law. She just pushes the aerobics chick off the
but
stage.
she does enough to get the security.
Yeah.
So she's basically public disorder is what she would.
But again, it doesn't make sense.
And then
but it's a good story because it now allows Bill and Ted to go do the stupid jailbreak scene.
No, the best use of time travel in the world.
Yeah, and again, because it's set up earlier. Like he basically when he
Says,
tells
have you seen my keys?
Yeah, when he comes out, he's explaining to Bill about his dad, how he's mad at him, and he's going to send him to Alaska if he doesn't pass his history report. And it's a throwaway line. Ted, have you seen my keys? And he steps out, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah,
right. And then later on, they need to get inside the jail, so they say so they're standing outside thinking, what could we do? Well, what about if we got hold of your dad's keys? And then we could maybe,
put it behind the sign.
Leave them behind that sign somewhere. And he picks him up and he's like, it was me who stole my dad's keys. It's
even better than that, though. It takes these two stoner kids who have been dumb throughout the entire movie and shows how intelligent they actually are. Because Bill says, hey, I got an idea. What we'll do is after this, we'll get in the time machine, we'll go back in the time, we'll steal your dad's keys and leave them behind here. So he actually thinks of saying, well, we'll just go back in time. So they're actually thinking about it.
Well, and just the whole idea of how they passed their history report. Realistically, the way that they do that, the principal of the school should be asking questions like, wait a second, like, how the hell did you do this? How the hell did you get this phone booth in here? Who are all these people? And then not only does his dad also show up, who just recently arrested all these people. Like, so, like, again, it doesn't make sense, but it's the story.
I figured out that, so to pass the test, they wrote it off as, what we've done is we've made a mini play. This is a script we wrote. These are all actors.
But the reason I brought that up is because that is kind of one of the themes of the story, is that intelligence is relative.
And if you put your mind to it, like when they do concentrate,
there's different levels of knowledge. Like, not everybody has to be a Mozart. Not everyone has to be a Sigmund Freud or see where I'm going with this? Not everybody has to be a Socrates.
No, you can all just be Billy the Kid.
Or Bill and Ted. All right, well, I think we should probably start wrapping it up now. Is there any other movies you want to just...
What's happening? 6 feet apart from me, and you can follow me all you want.
Aha!
Anyway, thanks for watching. Cue music.